There's a clip making the rounds from an NFL broadcast involving Bijan Robinson. Depending on who you ask, it's either a harmless football moment blown out of proportion, or a reminder of how casual language can still carry real weight. So instead of rushing to an outrage, let's slow this down, add some context, and talk about why reasonable people are landing in very different places on this. Because this conversation isn't really about Bijan, it's about intent, impact, and what we do when these two don't line up. During a nationally televised football game, Bijan Robinson was caught on the hot mic using the phrase, "smear the queer." The clip circulated quickly online and backlash followed almost immediately. To be clear, there's no allegation this was aimed at a specific person, there's no evidence of malicious intent, and it was said in context of a football game, not commentary on sexuality. The distinction matters, but it doesn't end the discussion. For people who didn't grow up around football, this phrase didn't come out of nowhere. Historically, this game referred to a playground football game where essentially one player had the ball, everybody else tried to tackle him, and when he tackled the ball, he tossed it to somebody else. Over time, the phrase became normalized in football spaces, often repeated without players even stopping to think about the literal meaning of the word queer itself. As awareness has grown, many programs have shifted to alternative names for the same idea, like kill the carrier, or I've even heard tackle the guy with the ball. For a lot of players, the phrase became disconnected from sexuality entirely. It was tradition, not ideology. And that context is important. This is where one side of the argument comes in. To many players, coaches, fans, the phrase is muscle memory, not belief. It's about toughness, not identity. There is no intent to demean queer people, and singling out Bijan feels like blaming him for the language he inherited. If your standard is intent alone, this looks like a non-issue. No slur directed at a person, no hateful rant, just football language slipping onto a national broadcast. That's the reasonable position. But here's where the other side's also being reasonable. Even if the intent wasn't there, words still land somewhere. And for many LGBTQ+ viewers, the word queer wasn't always academic or reclaimed. It was something that was shouted at them, used to shame them or even isolate them. So when it shows up casually on national TV, it brings back those associations. It reinforces language some people thought we were moving past. It signals that some phrases are still considered acceptable in massive public spaces. This isn't about being fragile. It's about memory, history, and lived experience. And this is where I want to share something personal. When I was younger, I used to casually use the R slur. Not proud of it, but at the time, I didn't really question it. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, it didn't offend me, so I assumed it was harmless. You know the saying, I was in Xbox lobbies, you hear it all. Then one day, my best friend asked me a simple question. He said, would you use that word in front of a special needs person? Not at them, just with them in the room. I didn't even really have to think. I knew the answer immediately. That moment put everything in perspective for me, because it made me realize that just because a word doesn't offend me, doesn't mean it isn't offensive to somebody else. Intent didn't erase the impact, comfort didn't erase the history, and habit wasn't an excuse. That's why I don't think the situation calls for canceling Bijan. We don't need a dogpile on a public figure or pretend he's some kind of villain. But I also don't think his response should be who cares, which it wasn't. He came out and made a very nice public apology. This is one of those moments where growth lives in the middle. You can acknowledge the football context, recognize how the word queer has been used historically, retire the language that doesn't add anything positive, and move forward without it having to be a morality play. You can believe Bijan meant no harm and still believe certain phrases don't need to survive anymore. Those ideas don't cancel each other out. This is why I try to lead with context instead of outrage, because most real conversations aren't black and white, they're uncomfortable shades of gray. If you agree, disagree, or land somewhere in between, let me know in the comments down below, but let's keep it respectful.